Moby, have you seen my three-cornered hat? Give me that. I'm gonna be late for my fife and drum corps. Dear Tim and Moby, why do they call George Washington the father of his country? From Lada. Well, there are pretty good reasons for that. George Washington was the commander-in-chief of the American Army during the Revolutionary War. America won its independence from England in that war. So when it came time to elect our first president, Washington was the natural choice. For those reasons, Washington is considered the foremost of the founding fathers. That was the group of men who established the United States in its early years. Washington was born in Virginia on February 22nd, 1732, the oldest son of a wealthy farming family. He entered public service at the young age of 17, becoming a government surveyor. That's someone who determines exact land boundaries between properties, towns, and states. A few years later, Washington joined the colonial militia, or volunteer army. He was quickly promoted and led a raid on a French army unit in what is now Ohio. This small battle eventually led to the French and Indian War, a 7-year conflict between England and France over territories in America. Washington retired from the militia as a full colonel with a reputation for bravery. He married and joined the Virginia House of Burgesses, Virginia's legislature. During Washington's time as a representative, England's Parliament passed the Sugar Act, Stamp Act, and Townshend Acts. These laws imposed heavy taxes on the American colonies, even though the colonists had no representation in the British Parliament. Along with many of his fellow representatives, Washington grew to believe that the colonies needed to separate from England. When war finally broke out in 1775, Washington was elected general and commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. He proved to be a capable leader and strategic thinker. His Christmas Day attack across the ice-clogged Delaware River scored an early victory for the colonists. In the winter of 1777 to 1778, a quarter of Washington's troops died at Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, from cold, starvation, and disease. But his strong leadership kept the army together. He led the Continental Army to its final victory against England at the Battle of Yorktown, Virginia, in 1781. After the war, Washington presided over the Constitutional Convention, where the U.S. Constitution was written. He was elected the first president of the United States in 1789. Because the country was brand new, there was a lot of work to do. Most presidents appoint 1 or 2 Supreme Court justices. Washington had to appoint the entire Supreme Court. He also oversaw the ratification of the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. The United States was still young, so there was a lot of disagreement in Congress about which direction to take. Washington used his immense popularity to keep the country together. And because he was the first president, he set a lot of precedents or examples for the office. Like, he left office after 2 terms, even though he would have easily won another election. Some people even wanted to make him king. Until Franklin D. Roosevelt, every president followed the 2-term precedent. And after FDR, this custom became law. U.S. presidents cannot be elected to more than 2 terms in office. Before he stepped down in 1796, Washington delivered his farewell address. In it, he warned Americans that they needed to stick together or lose the liberty they'd fought so hard for. Yeah, that's true. Washington didn't think all Americans were deserving of such freedoms. He kept hundreds of enslaved people at his Virginia estate, Mount Vernon. At first, he saw nothing wrong with fighting for freedom while owning human beings. But his views evolved, maybe due to friendships with Northerners like Ben Franklin and John Adams. Both men strongly opposed slavery, as did many other figures of the Revolution. By the time he was president, Washington had come to believe that slavery needed to end. But he worried that outlawing it too quickly and too soon would tear the country apart. As for his own enslaved labor, Washington ordered them to be set free, but only after his death in 1799. He was buried at Mount Vernon. Today, Washington's estate is a National Historic Landmark. The buildings and grounds have been preserved, including the slave quarters. It's an amazing place to learn more about the full story of our first president. So, you really want to join the Fife and Drum Corps?